Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this month's COFFIES Seminar. We are very honored to have Dr. Mausumi Dikpati as our speaker today. Let me introduce our speaker. Dr. Mausumi Dikpati is a senior scientist in the High Altitude Observatory at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. She received her PhD in 1996 from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore before joining NCAR as a postdoc researcher. She has been at NCAR ever since. Dr. Dikpati's research focuses on modeling the dynamics and magnetohydrodynamics of the solar interior and the solar dynamo. She is one of the pioneers in the application of modern data assimilation methods to solar tachocline and dynamo models for simulating and forecasting solar activity. Let's thank Masumi again. And if just before we start the seminar, if in the seminar, if you have any question, please feel free to just speak up directly, ask the questions, or if you want, you can put it in the chat and save it in the end. Thank you. I will pass the Zoom to Masumi.
Okay, thank you so much. It's as I was chatting just before this talk that it is kind of my dream seminar. I was looking forward to give this coffees seminar for a long time. And also this thing, not that I wasn't invited, but I wanted to delegate it to my postdoc, Breno. In the past 2 years, Breno has given two coffees seminar, and I think I informed him I'm giving this seminar today. He is a major part in this paper, so most likely he has joined also. Slide. Yeah, thank you very much. And I am so pleased to see so many people join. And please interrupt me anytime you like. So the title of my talk is Does the Sun Have Polar Vortices? Why polar vortices are so important? You know, recently these polar vortices observed to form on the Earth. And basically what you are seeing here, that North Pole little tilted, and you see that anti-clockwise, that's cyclonic vortices formed at the low temperature region. Basically, low temperature region correspond to low pressure region also. And you see a clockwise or cyclone, anti-clockwise is cyclonic and clockwise is anticyclone. That vortices also a pair formed. It's a kind of early March, and the prediction is that it's spreading in such a way that you can see that warm temperature is migrating towards the Arctic zone, and this cold temperature, it's formed at the European region, but it's spreading now towards America and towards North America, and it's also splitting. So you see the split. So the cold front. So it is bringing the cold front towards North America. So by the week of March 17, another big cold wave is predicted. So in the week of in Boulder, in the week of space weather, another cold wave is coming, and many of you who came to this SDO meeting faced that cold wave, and then another is coming. If you are coming for space weather workshop, you will be facing another cold wave. So this is the I just gave some importance of why some background of why polar vortex are so important. It is in the case of the Earth, it is primarily hydrodynamic, and therefore it carries the cold temperature, low pressure, and the flow to transport the cold as well as transport the heat. So Arctic region is warming up, and then North America is going to get a big cold wave very soon. You also know about this Jupiter tide vortices, tide swirls found by Juno mission in 2017. North Pole is surrounded by about 8 tide vortices, cyclones and anticyclones. So you can see cyclones and anticyclones alternately. And whereas the South Pole was observed to have 5 vortices at that time. Um, it is not just Earth or Jupiter. In general, many planets contain polar vortices. In Saturn, you can see that Cassini spacecraft observed both poles, and they reveal remarkable hexagonal structure in the northern hemisphere. I'm showing only the northern hemisphere here. Southern vortex had more circular shape. Furthermore, the other planets like Mars, Venus, Uranus, Neptune, and even the satellite Titan have polar vortices. Now, the question is, um, does the Sun have polar vortices? If so, what might they look like? Do they evolve with solar cycle? So there have been attempts to look for polar vortices. In 2015, helioseismology found dominant M equal to 1 modes up to at latitudes as high as 75 degrees. And recent theoretical models also aimed at explaining these high latitude inertial modes. But these modes they do not find Jupiter like polar vortices. Um, High latitude sails that have long extension that spiral inward toward the poles and can wrap nearly completely around the sun. These were found by Hathaway Upton. Um, they have lifetimes of several months, and they rotate differentially with latitude and drift poleward at a speed of 2 meters per second. Well, let's see how I can run this movie. Yes, so you can see this movie. Um, and during my coffee annual meeting 15 minutes talk, I prepared the slides very quickly and I missed this part. So if David is in the audience, so David, so you will not be upset now. So I am showing this. So these are the attempts to find the polar vortices in the sun. And also, very recent study in 2024, they found Becky et al. Found polar latitude swirls of longitudinal wave number m equal to 1 in a linear hydrodynamic eigensystem. It is a deep model starting from the bottom 0.7 to the rigid top at 0.985 R. It's a deep convective shell model, and in the linear calculation they estimated from model as well as from observations, and these are the correspondence. You can see very good correspondence. This is a kind of thing, equatorial lost waves, that I will show in my movie also when I show my simulations. So how to do the polar vortex model? Basically, planetary vortices have been simulated using hydrodynamic shallow water model. This one, Rostami et al. 2017, they did for the Saturn, and they showed that the development of barotropic instability in this model, nonlinear hydrodynamic shallow water models, can maintain that hexagonal pattern. I showed that Saturn have that hexagonal pattern that can be maintained by this instability, by the development of this instability. Barotropic, which is a very shallow water type instability. Jupiter's atmosphere, though thin, it has also underlying layers of fluid, and that extends several scale height. and this was done by Lee et al. This modeling was done by Lee et al. This is also a hydrodynamic shallow water model, and this model has been characterized by a non-dimensional number called the Berger number. So this involves the gravity, cell thickness, length scale, um, latitude, and the um, rotation rate. Similarly, we have the model I will be presenting today. We have also implemented a shallow water model, but ours is MHD shallow water model, and it is located in a thin supergranulation layer near the surface. Um, it is not to explain the generation and maintenance of near surface shear layer. Basically, it is located only in a part of the near surface shear layer, very close to the surface. It's called the supergranulation layer, and we also characterize this model by effective gravity G, which is very much like this Berger number you can see here. It doesn't have the latitude, but except everything it has. Um, so first I want to show the hydrodynamic results. We simulated first we simulated the hydrodynamic case, and it shows the vortices, a pair of broad vortices um, um, characterized by the location of 50 degree up to the poles. So basically they have uh, cyclonic and anticyclonic vortices. So sorry, I can confuse. So cyclonic is anti-clockwise and anticyclonic is clockwise. So here you see the arrows. These are the arrows for flow vectors, and red represents the bulging or high pressure region, and blue the low pressure region. This is the equatorial view, and this is the polar view. So equatorial, like slightly tilted, 30-degree tilted or so, and you see it evolves. While it evolves, it maintains that broad nature. Um, it is like, almost going towards the extending towards the equator. If this is the pole, you can see not only the high mid latitude, it is extending even towards the equator. So I do not know whether these can be called the tight vortices, polar vortices, because they are not so tight. They are like very broad, and they during this evolution they maintain that broadness. So these are most likely the um, classical hydrodynamic Rossby waves, and they also rotate retrograde. So this can be characterized by the hydrodynamic Rossby waves pattern. So how did the Jupiter have those tight vortices at the pole? Jupiters were also modeled, as I mentioned, by Lee et al. In using hydrodynamic shallow water model. So they simulated hydrodynamic tight vortices for Jupiter. Note that Jupiter is rotating 65 times faster than the Sun. And similarly, Rastami et al., who simulated Saturn's vortices, Saturn is also rotating like about 60 times faster than the Sun. So they both are much faster rotator. So what we studied, by artificially making the Sun rotate 10 times faster, we found that yes, we can get tight hydrodynamic hydrodynamic vortices. Here you can see six such cyclonic and anticyclonic swirls. However, you see one thing, they expand towards the pole, but their center remains at the same location. They don't migrate towards the pole. So what is happening very close to the pole, like at 85 degree or so? What is happening there? I mean, it is not the sun. I was trying to see if the faster rotator can generate tight swirls, cyclonic, anticyclonic swirls like Jupiter. So they can. And this is because for faster rotators, you can have much bigger Coriolis forces, which tend to deflect the flow faster towards its right, and therefore bigger Coriolis force means tighter swirls. So perhaps we know why hydrodynamically it is possible to generate the tide vortices in Jupiter and Saturn. But in the sun, we can think of magnetic field because sun is dominated by magnetic field. But what is the magnetic field in the high latitude and polar region? It is a polar field. So, and they drift towards the pole in the banded form. So here is the polar faculae pattern from a very old paper, Makarov and Makarova, 1985. And you can see in the north and in south pole, they migrate during the as a function of solar cycle, they migrate towards the pole. And so basically this is the kind of pattern. It's a kind of rough Gaussian pattern. So what we did, we estimated their speed um, from the filament evolution. Roughly they migrate 1 degree per month, and we re-estimated their pattern, that Gaussian type pattern. Here is the south polar region, here's the north polar region, from SOHO MDI Deversin faculae data and HMI Deversin faculae data, employed from 1997 to 2008. So we see that there is a pattern that migrates towards the pole, and so we can mimic that pattern in the form of generated toroidal field. So it is very weak polar field, therefore it will generate very weak toroidal magnetic field. And this global toroidal magnetic field is not just a theoretical consideration. It was also been observed. It has also been observed by Ulrich and Biden, um, to follow the polar field pattern and global and polar reversal. So we incorporated this banded magnetic field migrating towards the pole from about 60 degree latitude. It's generated from the polar, this kind of polar field. They are generated and they are migrating towards the pole with the polar rush. So 1 degree per month approximately. So we incorporated that, and we found, first we considered a very weak polar field case, that is 5 Gauss. And so we can generate the similar like 5 Gauss polar field in a month. And then what it does, it can create the initial condition of like m equal to 4 modes. That is the highest growth rate mode. So we initialize the system with that mode and we make them evolve. You can see that final evolved configuration is a dominant m equal to 1 pattern that observations have found already, up to 75, or even David's observation go even beyond 75 degree, I think he mentioned. So and it matches the frequency also that helioseismology found, like Bogart et al. Paper, they showed this, mentioned this frequency. So this is the evolution and it creates the vertical flows and maintain the magnetostrophic balance, except when the inertia gravity waves appear. So I mentioned that in Becky et al., one of the figure of Becky et al., so I'm showing you the movie. Well, this movie is faster than what I showed during COFFIES annual meeting. It was too slow. But if you want to see the slower movie, you can. It is attached in the paper, so you can see there. Here is 4 times faster, so that you can see it. So basically, that m equal to 4 pattern is following the polar rush, migrating towards the pole, and eventually forming an m equal to sustained m equal to 1 pattern at very high latitude, 75 to almost 88 degree we simulated. So you can see one more time, and this matches the um, observation, the frequency of observation. And you can, I was saying that I was showing that Rossby gravity modes. So maybe I will run one more time to show them. See, these modes that are crossing the equator, that what they call equatorial Rossby waves, basically they are in our simulation, we find them as Rossby gravity modes. So this is the weak field case, and what happens if we take a slightly stronger field? In the case of stronger field, 16 Gauss we took, and here we find that highest growth rate mode is m equal to 3, and we show we part of the system with m equal to 3 mode. And you can see much more nonlinear interaction here. So it is not very smooth like six vortices. They are interacting while they are migrating towards the pole. They are interacting. They eventually form an m equal to 1 pattern, but m equal to 2 vortices also appear off and on, and because of the strong nonlinear mode interaction. So you see these things, and I am showing here now the evolution of energy for this last case, where I had that generalizing with m equal to 3, but you can also see higher modes getting generated. So we initialized with m equal to 3 modes. Of course, they are very quickly m equal to 1 and 2 mode get generated, but m equal to 4 and 5 also get generated with low energy, and they exchange energy during their evolution. They exchange energy. They take energy from m equal to 0 mode, that is basically the differential rotation, and you see the total energy is conserved very accurately. So this is all I had to say, and in summary, I would like to say that formation of polar vortices on solar surface from mid-latitude perturbations are strongly influenced by the presence of magnetic field. And as I mentioned regarding Earth's vortices, they create that weather pattern and cold front. In the case of the sun, polar fields, and polar rush, which form these vortices very close to the pole, which were not observed yet. So close to the pole, what is happening is not observed yet, are supposed to exist in all solar phases except the solar maximum, the peak phase, because that is the time when polar field will be 0. And it is important to know how polar vortices are being formed there, how they are interacting with the global differential rotation and global meridional circulation, how they are modulating the global flow patterns, so that we know the polar fields better, because polar field is the basically polar field is the seed for the next cycle, and therefore it is very important to know the solar polar region dynamics. It is one of the goal of the next decade also. Um, However, it remains to be explored how the formation of vertical structures deeper down from the surface happen, whether it is very localized near the surface region or it goes deeper down. It needs full 3D dynamics, and I think Becky et al. Have started doing that thing. And because I already mentioned that the polar fields, because polar fields are the precursor for the strength of the next cycle. So polar region dynamics is very important to know, and if polar vortex are happening there, that will interact with the global flows to tell us whether polar region is spinning up or spinning down, or how it is how the high latitude vortices lose stability. And obviously, to answer all these questions, we need to know from observations how the dynamics and dynamics of flows and magnetic fields are occurring very close to the pole. We know from helioseismic observations up to 75 or maybe a little beyond 75 degree, but we really do not know what exactly is happening, like as close at 85 or 88 degree. So our results suggest some of this happening there. So okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We have plenty time for discussion. So, if you have any questions,
Oh,
raise the hand
sorry,
or ask in the chat. Oh, please.
I stopped sharing. Sorry,
Oh, okay,
people
okay.
may like it. People may.
Yeah, we have plenty of time for discussion. So there's a question in the chat already. Shay, do you want to ask speak up?
Sure. Yeah, I was just wondering, so we do have missions that are trying to get at least to higher latitudes. So my question is how, uh, from what you've talked about, how many of these different questions or results could be confirmed by just having something like solar orbiter at higher latitudes versus actually looking directly at the poles with the polar mission?
Yeah, solar orbiter can say a lot, but they are not yet observing the flow patterns there. So if they can, then they can tell a lot also. Furthermore, very close to the pole, like 85, 88 degrees, um, if it is merging, if the vortex are merging to m equal to 1, or they are doing m equal to 2 patterns also, they can tell a lot about the polar fields. And polar missions going there, observing the flows as well as magnetic fields, would tell us the combined dynamics of the sun, whether the polar field evolutions are consistent with those vortices and global flow patterns.
Mausumi, may I ask a question?
Yes, sure, please.
What are the sources and sinks of vorticity flux in the polar vortices? And is the net vorticity flux still zero?
Yes. Net vorticity flux. No, it's net vorticity flux is not zero, but it's conserved. So we solve induction and vorticity equations, and so when we are initializing the mean flow, which is purely axisymmetric, that is differential rotation, when we are perturbing with the perturbations, we are injecting the vorticity into it. And so that can be injected by any means as a perturbation, and that gives the vorticity. And so net vorticity is not zero, it's conserved.
Okay. It like how does the injection happen? I guess like what is the source of the vorticity, and do you have to keep injecting it because some vorticity might dissipate?
No, no. Well, yes. In the dissipative system, yes, they can dissipate. My case is ideal MHD, so they don't dissipate. As I showed in the energy. So energy is so accurately conserved for a long time. Here they don't dissipate. But yes, in a dissipative system they can dissipate. And that's why it is important to redo the calculation using dissipation.
Thank you.
Okay, we have two hands raised. Irina first and then Lauren. Irina?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mausumi, for great presentation, very interesting results. And my question is about magnetic energy.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I'm interested, do you see how change magnetic energy rate as function of latitude? And I'm interested if you're able to separate a magnetic field potentially generated by vertical structures and like a general, like classical magnetic field process dynamics and so on.
Mm-hmm. So magnetic field here magnetic energy um, magnetic field given to the system, that is that is generated from that polar field in the form of very weak toroidal field, that is the source of magnetic energy. These calculations are for very weak magnetic field, therefore the primary energy is kinetic. The energy I have plotted here are primarily kinetic energy, and the total energy is calculated here. Um, so magnetic field here is more like a catalyst, which is triggering, which is exciting the system to extract energy primarily from kinetic energy through Maxwell stress. So and Reynolds stress extract energy from the kinetic energy. However, the magnetic energy behaved as a catalyst to trigger the system to drive that up. Once the vortices are formed, those vortices migrate following the magnetic field. So it's behaving as a catalyst. So you are asking whether those magnetic field can be separated from the flow field.
No, not just this. Sorry if I was unclear. My question: if can vertical motions in your simulations can contribute to magnetic field generation?
Oh, yes. No,
Okay,
not in this model,
okay.
because it doesn't have any alpha type term. But shallow water models can be generalized to include a source term,
Mhm.
alpha type source term, that can then generate the magnetic field. Now, that can generate magnetic field. However, whether that can alone complete the dynamo loop, that is still that question is still under investigation.
Thank you.
But this model doesn't. This model doesn't
Yeah.
generate.
It is for future.
It is for future, yes. And it actually we are working on that. It will be very soon in the near future.
Great.
Lost wave dynamo.
Hey, Lauren, Lauren, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Mausumi. And I actually, Arena asked my question, but so I'll ask a different one. Do we know from observations, I guess, what are the m equals 2 and 3 components of the field? I mean, we maybe know m equals 0, but do we know how strong the field is at, say, m equals
M
3?
equal to 1 and 2, the non-axisymmetric component of the magnetic field. From observations, you are asking whether we know from observations.
Yeah, and roughly what would they be in terms of?
Yeah, I think it is possible to estimate from surface magnetogram what are the non-axisymmetric component in the magnetic field, how you can combine with what amplitude in order to obtain your total magnetogram. So total magnetogram contains axisymmetric field as well as the non-axisymmetric component. Definitely, it is not dominated by non-axisymmetric component. Axisymmetric is the main component, but there are non-axisymmetric component, and that can vary with the phase of the solar cycle. Like you are involved in the activity nest working group with in Amy's working group, so you know that activity nest form, and those are basically at selected longitudes, and therefore they can generate that they can be they can be the part of those non-axisymmetric magnetic field component. And so depending on the locations, how many activity nest regions locations form, and how they how they create the warping pattern. From that you can estimate their amplitude also. I don't think anyone has, maybe Roger, I don't know. I believe somebody may have done the axisymmetric amplitude of the axisymmetric component as a function of solar cycle. Yes, it's possible, but it's not so clean. Oh, Bidda.
Yeah, actually, there is a work by this D. Rosa, D. Rosa and Sasa Brun and Huekoma. In 2012, they showed the different aim of the solar magnetic field as a function of solar cycle for last
From
one.
observations.
Yeah, from observation.
Okay. So sorry, I didn't know about that paper. So that is I will also look at that paper, and Lauren, I suggest look at that paper.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Sorry, I don't want to. I mean, I guess have you played around with inputting the different strengths of the field informed by these observations, or is it mostly the m equals 0? I think you said 10 Gauss at one point. That's why I was thinking of this.
No, I did 5 Gauss and 16 Gauss, 2 cases. 5 Gauss is the weaker field, and the 16 Gauss is the slightly stronger. So basically, based on the polar fields. So in some cycles, polar fields are weak, and in some cycles, they are strong. So from that, I generated the weak toroidal field.
Okay, but those are for the m equals 0, correct?
Yeah, I imposed it on m equal to 0 pattern. So that's like m non-zero pattern is like perturbation, and then the whole system formed, and that the whole system is improving.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's why I was asking. Anyway, yeah, thank you.
But we now have two questions, one from HMI conference room, one from Sasha. So we'll do the HMI one. By the way, Mark has put the link, put that paper in chat, the paper that Bidia mentioned. So anyone interested can just refer to that. A question from the HMI conference room.
Hey, Mausumi, this is Junwei. Very nice talk. So I'm trying to understand whether your simulated M equal to 1 mode is the same thing or similar to what the M equal to 1 mode you mentioned at the beginning of the talk, that is observed by Rick Bogart, David Hathaway, and simulated by Yuto Becky. Becky,
Right. Actually, yes. Uh,
what you showed was actually vortices, but what they plotted often was the zonal flow as a function of latitude and time. The zonal flow actually formed a yin-yang structure around the pole. So I think it would be useful for you to plot the zonal flow only instead
right. Yeah.
of vertices.
Yes.
Yeah, that will give us a better picture if they have very similar structure.
Yes. Yes. So um, you mean plotting the total flow, like
Only,
m equal to
the
0
zonal.
and comma.
That's
But
right.
these are not total. These are also that only non-axisymmetric part. So I tried to do that. And so yes, and total flow can be plotted also. They would look more like they will form total flow might form something like a pattern, like hexagonal or octagonal pattern. So I have to check that how it looks like.
All right. Thank you.
Question from Sasha.
Okay, Mausumi, thanks for the very interesting results. And I have two questions. My first question is, I'm wondering if your vortices are prograde or retrograde or co-rotating. And the second question is if you see magnetic flux transport to the polar regions because by these vortices.
They are retrograde. Actually, Rossby waves are in general, they are retrograde. So Rossby waves are in general retrograde, and you can have prograde Rossby waves if they are very heavily magnetized, and that can happen for very strong magnetic field. Here, the magnetic field is weak, so it is still very hydrodynamically dominated. They are retrograde.
And do you see a magnetic flux transport by these vortices to the polar regions?
Magnetic flux transport is actually imposed in this simulation. It is due to the polar field rushing towards the pole. So on the average 1 degree per month, they are migrating. So that thing has been imposed in this simulation, that it's migrating from 60 degree towards the pole.
Okay, thank you.
Masumi, I want to clarify one thing here. So when you say retrograde, the retrograde is relative to the cardinal rotation rate or the equatorial rotation rate, because from the references you mentioned earlier, I pretty much believe the M equal to 1 mode is actually stationary relative to local rotation reference frame. That is, it's not a pro or retrograde relative to its local latitude.
No, I don't know why you are saying M equal to 1 mode is stationary. This is in the rotating frame and rotating with the co-rotation rate, and therefore it is more like Carrington rotation rate. And so it's
look, you mentioned here it's negative 86.8 nanohertz. It's basically same as the different rotation rate at a latitude of about 70 degrees. So that's what I meant.
Oh, okay. So my simulations are very close to the pole. So minus 86.8 nanohertz, we are saying very close to the 75 degree.
That's right.
That's what the helioseismology have also found. Yes, and let's see. After this thing form, they still evolve. They still evolve. They look stationary, but they still evolve. Yeah, they still evolve. So, could you repeat your confusion one more time?
No, that's just one comment. I think the according to observations you mentioned earlier in the talk, those m equal to 1 mode is actually stationary relative to local latitude. It's not a retrograde or prograde. That's my understanding. But even someone in the audience can correct me if I'm wrong.
So somebody who Sharbani is in the meeting, so it is in one of the calculation.
Becky Yuto is in the audience.
Oh, Becky. So
yes. So the retrograde frequency of minus 86 nanohertz roughly corresponds to about 75 degrees in latitude in terms of differential rotation. So that overlaps with the where the mode power peaks. So in that sense,
that in that latitude
yeah.
they would look like stationary.
May I ask a question? So the linear model of the inertial modes predict that this M1 high latitude mode have a flow
model, right? Your model?
Yes, for example.
Let me bring that.
And it's also implied by observation that this M1 high latitude mode has a flow component which goes across the pole.
Yes, of course, m equal to 1 can cross the pole.
So your model also...
m equal to 1 flow can always cross the pole.
Okay.
Yeah. But not m greater than 1.
Okay, we still have something like 10 minutes left. If there's any other question, please speak up directly or raise your hand. Currently, we have no hands raised. Okay. We have one from Gregory. Oh, two now. Okay. Greg first.
Thank you. Very interesting talk. Perhaps you covered this and I wasn't paying attention, but does the polar coronal pole boundaries and also the structure and position of polar crown filaments provide any, or is it related to, is it influenced by possible vortices, and yes, so is it related? Is it correlated somewhere?
Yes, they are correlated. So that is what I was trying to say, that they determine the migration speed, but depending on what kind of vortices are being formed near the unobserved region, depending on that, it will create the modulation in the differential rotation and meridional circulation, the global flow patterns, and therefore that will eventually influence their evolution, their migration. So it's like it will be like a nonlinear process that these are observed, and then these are governing the evolution of those fields towards drift of those fields towards the pole. and then that is generating these vortices, and these vortices can influence the mean flow, and then the mean flow can change their drift pattern.
So you by looking at the evolution of polar crown filaments, or you can, and this is what you're doing here effectively.
Yeah, effectively. But see, these are lot extrapolated. It is not, yeah, we are not seeing up to the pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
And question from Krishnan.
Hi, Mausumi. Nice presentation. So in your conclusion, like you mentioned that during solar maxima, we may not be able to see the m equal to 1 high latitude modes. So is it because like your hydrodynamical case cannot cannot obtain the m equal to 1 high latitude modes, or whereas your
No, hydrodynamic, you can still have hydrodynamic high latitude mode. However, I was talking about very close to the pole. So at very close to the pole, you may not see the vortices during solar maximum because polar field is changing sign. It's going to zero. Probably in order to vanish, after the polar field vanishes, in order to vanish the vortices, it may take some time, but it will not take until the minima. So it will vanish within a finite time.
Thank you.
Okay. Greg, your hand is okay. You just lower your hand. Okay. That seems to be all the question for now. Last call for question before we close the seminar today. Okay, no more. Okay, so yeah. So thank you, Mausumi, for the wonderful presentation and especially for the very long discussion time. We have very good discussion, a lot of questions that answered. Thank you so much. I really like that. Thank you for everyone for attending. As usual, this recording will be put online afterwards. But one more note about the last month's seminars, from the observation about inertial modes, like related to this one. That one, as from requested from the speaker, will not be put online on YouTube. But if anyone is interested, please just email me. We will share the recording internally. So I will share with COFFIES all mailing list. But if from anyone from the audience who is not on COFFIES but would like to watch the recording of the previous one, just give me an email. I will share the link with you. Okay, but this one will be recorded and put online. Okay, so see you guys next month, I guess. See you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.